start these things off with kind of a bit of the beginning. I know that you've been in music, well, a majority of your life. As I heard from Dennis, he says that you grew up in a musical family. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's exactly right. I grew up in Los Angeles. As a kid, I was born into a pretty modest home back in 1953. My mother had me, and then she and my father she birthed my sister about 11 months later. So my sister and I were born in the same year. I was born in February,
That's very
and
quick.
my sister was born in December. So after about, a few years of dealing with two kids with, you know, we were like, I guess we called ourselves the Irish twins.
Yeah.
But anyway, she and my father decided that she could use a break. She was a bit overwhelmed, so they decided between the two of them that she could go out and just get a part-time job somewhere, just as a way to break the rhythm.
Yeah.
So she got this job as a secretary, and it just so happened that it was at a music, like an artist agency, an artist management agency. And like I say, this was back in the early 50s, 53, and at the time, doo-wop was the thing. That was the rage of the day. And the agency just so happened to manage one of the great doo-wop groups of the time, the Platters,
Wow.
and The Great Pretender and Only You, all of the great hits. And it wasn't long before the management elites of that agency saw that my mother had writing skills. My mother was a writing major in high school, and in junior college she had studied journalism
Mm.
and had studied creative writing. So it was not long before they put her into publicity and into marketing and things related to promotion. And so she ended up being like the publicist for these doo-wop groups. And she found herself moved from the front secretarial desk into writing all of the plugs and the promotional material and the marketing stuff that was needed for these groups, especially when they toured.
Wow.
So it was a matter of her getting the bug. She really loved being in the industry. But of course, that was the very thing that disrupted the family. My father wasn't really about her taking on a career. For him, it was only a matter of her getting this part-time job to kind of break the ice, but then, get back into the rhythm of housewife, raising kids. I'm the breadwinner. He works at a factory at the time, but she wasn't having any of that. Once she had gotten this sense and this experience, she wanted to pursue it as a career, which at the time was unheard of, especially given that women were not really in positions of that kind all that much at that time. And then for her to be a person or a woman of color was even more rare. So it just turned out that that was where my mother directed her energy and her focus. My father and she split. My grandmother stepped in to raise my sister and I as a way to give my mother full license to just pursue her dream without any hindering or without any obstacles by what it would mean to have to mother. So my grandmother actually raised us. My mother pursued a career and went on to work for a range of different people. Before long, she ended up being the West Coast promotion manager for Epic Records and
Wow.
Columbia, working under Clive Davis. This was, about maybe another 10 years out. And so, although my mother didn't live with us, she stayed pretty much engaged with us. I think she also wanted to protect us from a lot of the unsavory things that were quite known about the music business. But
Sure.
she also needed that freedom. Also, there was a stigma where women were not thought to be free and clear to pursue careers if they were mothers. There was this sense that women couldn't be fully available for a career if they were also mothering. So we were also made to not talk about the fact that we were my mother's
Mm.
children. We were made to speak, if it ever came up, that we were her siblings. So I grew up in this very strange world of hiding the fact that I was actually my mother's child, while at the same time being completely blown away by all of the things we were uh,
Experiencing.
privy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, my very first show was Ray Charles when I was 5. I saw Jimi Hendrix when I was 12. I went to a Little Richard recording session. My mother took us to these TV shows where her artists would have to appear on uh, shows like Shindig and Hullabaloo, where those were like the TV shows of the day, kind of like
Yeah.
American Bandstand. I remember seeing the Stones playing Satisfaction on one of those shows and hanging out with Gene Chandler. And my mother at one time was the publicist for Ike and Tina Turner, so it was nothing for me to be riding up, up to Baldwin Hills to visit them on an appointment my mother may have had with Ike or Tina. Cher and Sonny would come over to our house. She was really good friends with Sonny. I remember when Sonny came through to talk about how he had just met this woman up
Oh,
on the strip, and it ended up being Cher. And so they came by and visited. So this was like, the early to mid 60s.
yeah. I was just
Uh,
yeah. You're what probably in the just becoming a young like middle
oh,
schooler teenage
well, I
type.
was I was 6, 7, 8, all the way up through my teenage years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh,
So of course that was the inspiration that led me toward music. And looking back on it now, I think music became what it was I found attractive. Not so much that I was so into music, but more importantly, I think it was an attempt on my part to attract my mother's attention. I saw that my mother was spending all of her time in the interest of promoting artists, working on behalf of performers. And I think I pursued music as a child, thinking that, well, if I played music or performed or was in the arts, then my mother might make more of an attempt to pay attention to me. It was kind of an interesting uh, thing to kind of realize later on in life. It never really changed her behavior, but I found myself becoming more and more immersed in music. I don't think it was something I was drawn to just simply because I loved it. I think it was a different ulterior motive, but here I am now with
yeah.
this
Well,
musical background.
that's kind of a cool introduction to a question that I ask everybody that I do these sessions with, which is like, was there a certain specific moment where I call it when the bug bit, when you knew that music was not just something that you enjoyed, but like something you had to do. And I guess you kind of did touch on that with the idea that it was a lot of trying to influence, favor with your mom and just, get a little bit more of her attention. But was there a specific moment where you went like, okay, this isn't just me trying to get my mom's attention anymore. This is something that I am fully blown away by. I mean, you could probably pick any of the things you just mentioned as being catalysts. I know that most people getting to see Ray Charles or the Stones or any of those kinds of moments. I mean, Tina Turner for crying out loud. That must have been just such a crazy set of
Yeah,
moments.
I was impressed by, I remember that time we're seeing Ray Charles or seeing Hendrix, you know, uh, you know, seeing Gene Chandler perform live, trying to imitate Major Lance, listening to Bobby Womack and trying to get that kind of a soulful, such a passionate, um yearning kind of a vocal that was being communicated through the. Oh, did we lose each other?
Well, oh, you froze a little bit there, but I think we.
Ah, yeah, so all of those things really intrigued me. Diana Washington, listening to her, Bobby Womack,
Oh,
Bobby Blue Bland,
wow,
and then I loved groups like the Four Seasons and
you're going through my record like.
Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Yeah, I was always trying to imitate those high vocal parts from those singers that would sing those upper ranged vocal ideas. Eddie Kendricks from the Temptations.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I started. That's when it really started to hit me back around that time. Seeing the Beatles on TV was kind of an interesting phenomenon on the Ed
And
Sullivan Show.
was